welcome to another session of my summer school where we dive into the brilliant knowledge and exercises of Betty Edwards. Today the theme is perspective. We will get a handy technique to measure angles when we draw, especially when we draw objects, angles, when we are confronted with a space where there is perspective. And being confronted in a space where there is perspective is almost all the time actually as a human being. So in this room right now there is actually perspective. There's perspective in the box right there. But right now my camera is very much placed parallel to the wall behind me and there are books, so there are not many perspective lines. But if you look around you, you will definitely see some perspective lines. And for instance, you can look here at my viewing point. When I was writing the script for this summer school, we have the angles of the table, the book, the kitchen drawers in the background, and so forth. And if I turn myself around, you have plenty of angles again. So there's pretty much perspective, distorted lines all the time around us. And what Betty Edwards has in store for us to solve this when we draw is a principle, a method called sighting technique. It's very simple. We'll be using paper and we'll be using a pencil. Of course, you will also need your now well-trained ability to enter into the right hemisphere of the brain when you draw. The aim for today is to draw a cropped section of an interior of a corner in a house or wherever you may be. I will be drawing in our kitchen today. So let's just take the camera to the kitchen and I'll also show you this sighting technique. To demonstrate, I place a chair in front of me. Notice that it's turned so that it has lines in perspective. Now if I lift up my pencil vertically in a straight arm and align it to the furthest point of the chair, I choose the left side of the chair, then you can tell that there's a space, there's an angle between my pencil and the leg of the chair. How many degrees exactly is not of our concern, but we are interested in memorizing that angle as much as we can because we want to transfer it to our drawing paper. Notice that the vertical angle of my pencil is equal to the vertical edge of my drawing paper. This is useful to remind yourself that the paper is itself a guidance for us. This is also what we saw in the summer school episode where we drew a chair using a motive seeker. Now the trick is that you compare the angle of the pencil and paper to the angle of this chair leg here, and you try to transfer that angle to your drawing paper. I can just illustrate this by show you how I visualize the vertical line on my paper. I then look carefully with the sighting technique, straight arm. It helps closing one eye to flatten out your view. And then I recall that angle and put it down on my paper as fast as I can. And there we have, ladies and gentlemen, a diagonal of one leg of the chair. So what about the angle of the top plane and the line between the legs? Same procedure, only now let's try to place the pencil horizontally. I hold it up horizontally, aligned with a leg, so that it's easier for me to see an angle. Once again, this line here is just to illustrate to you how I think, to show you that I measure using this horizontal line compared to the angle of the point of the leg. I draw in the angle and therefore the leg. And then I simply continue using the technique to find the other angles and finish the chair. That was an introduction to sighting technique, which we will be using now when we will draw the corner of an interior. And you can really use any corner in your house or wherever you are. I will choose to draw in the kitchen because there are also some interesting shapes in here that I can draw in as well. The important thing is just that you have these diagonals here of the room, this diagonal and this diagonal here, vice versa up here, because those are perspective lines where we'll be using the sighting technique. You can also go for a wider shot so you get both top and bottom corner with you. And if you watched the first series with the motif seeker, this is a tool you can use now to crop in your motif. So let me just show you how you can use that. I hold up the motif seeker. Once again, it's a good idea to close one eye. And here you can see what I see. So I basically crop out the composition, which is also helpful for finding proportions. And if you want to know how to make a motif seeker, check out the mentioned episode. Now as I start drawing, you have a good background understanding of how I find the perspective lines in my drawing here in the kitchen. And once I go to the detailing of things later on, such as drawing the flowers or the container on the table, I'm using modified blind contour drawing. And this is the technique I use most of the time when I draw because it's just, it's the best technique. And go ahead yourself and try it out and draw the things you have in the kitchen. That's super fun and it's a nice way of exploring and a very different way of looking at things. And suddenly you experience that you have so many different amazing shapes just in your house. I hope you found the sizing technique very helpful and that it made you find all these lines in perspective in whatever room you've been drawing. I wish that I could see your drawings, but I'm sure that they look amazing. I couldn't help adding a bit of watercolor. What I need to say about the sizing technique is also that you can, of course, apply it to all sorts of rooms and spaces wherever you may be. So you can use it on streets, you can use it for drawing cars, you can use it for drawing buildings and big environments. And you will notice when you practice this, eventually during time, you will see that you don't need the pencil in the end. In the end, you can just measure by using your eyes, really. It becomes a very intuitive way of perspective, which is also called intuitive perspective. So whenever I draw something where you have these lines, I tune in to the right hemisphere of the brain, I look for the angle, and then I just put it down on the paper. It's that simple. Thank you for tuning in, and next time it will be shading, so look forward to that one. Till next time, have fun drawing.